how do you retain somebody within a sector where it can take up to 16 weeks to move from one provider to another? You know, you're going to lose them because by nature, basically, you're going to go to the quickest sort of person. If you can get into Asda's quicker than you can get into a care provider. So we lose passionate people from the care sector because we're reliant on these old archaic processes. If I can travel the world on a passport that's nearly 10 years old, that unfortunately looks nothing like me anymore, why can I not utilise my own data to get to get access to employment?
Hello and welcome to the Health Automated podcast, where we explore the fascinating world of social care, technology, all things well-being, sprinkled with a few laughs along the way. I'm your host, Lee Truman, and I'm thrilled to have you with us today. Before we go any further, please remember to subscribe, like, and review the podcast. Really helps us get our message out there. Now, our special guest today is someone that you all might know. So get ready to be inspired, because today we have an absolute powerhouse joining us on the podcast, the one and only Carly Rochester, with a staggering 25 years of experience, leading teams of over 400 staff. Carly's a true force to be reckoned with in the world of social care. But here's the thing, Carly isn't just a leader, she's a visionary. As the co-founder and director of ME Passport, she's taken a passion for making difference and channeled it into creating a revolutionary digital compliance passport. The game-changing solution is set to transform the way our sector recruits, giving the workforce the power to build, own and share their own compliance data with a single click. Carly, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you. I don't know how I'm going to live up to that introduction.
Yeah, just got to get the hype
You'll
going.
have to send that to me. I'll have to give it to other people.
That's it. I'll
Massage my ego.
Yeah. I'll put on LinkedIn as well, tag you on everything. So, Awesome. Great to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
As always, we are joined by my amazing co-host. So first of all, we've got the man who needs no introduction, the regional business manager for Essex Cares, co-founder of the amazing Care Review. You can catch that every Tuesday. I might be right, was Carly on the Care Review this Tuesday, or is it on the one going out tomorrow?
No, she was on the one that's just gone out. So yes, I should be familiar with this topic. It'll be like a test of how much I paid attention, won't it?
Yeah. We'll be counting, Mark. We'll be counting. And joining him is my incredible co-founder, brother from another mother, Jack White, not from the White Stripes, but co-founder of Health Automated. How we doing, mate? We all right?
Yeah, not too bad. I'm definitely getting you to write my eulogy, though.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, I am like 10 years older than you, so hopefully...
You need to start it now.
Yeah. And the diet of stress and coffee. Yeah.
Agreed.
Bold of you to shame, I'll be around. Before we jump into the topic today, we've got a really good topic. We always like to have a takeaway, so either a good or a bad. If you want to do good and bad, we can do that as well. So I'll start with Jack.
Oh, I'm going to go for a good one. So, although everyone knows Christmas is a bit of a chaotic time of year, especially in social care when it comes to planning, we've successfully begun onboarding two very large customers onto architecture, which is fantastic. So that's been really, really good, really positive. So really, really happy with that. So I'll leave it there.
Awesome. Carly?
Yeah, well, I guess my good story will be, obviously, we launched our product in April, and we've just had a really, another successful week, basically onboarding some really big new clients, to support carers to get into employment quicker, basically, yeah.
Awesome. Mark?
Well, sadly, I've not been onboarding any clients, but I've just had a good week. I've not had anything that is bad, not anything that's amazingly good, just a good week. I can't complain. And I think we have to take those wins sometimes.
Yeah, awesome. So good and bad for me. So good, got the Christmas tree up finally, so it's all looking a little bit more Christmassy. Bad is gone through a few personal challenges this year, so Christmas is going to be a little bit of a weird one, but determined to make the most out of it. So yeah, it's worth bearing in mind with Christmas coming up that it's not always perfect for everyone. So yeah, I think if people don't want to celebrate, give them a bit of space. So yeah, and that's me. So jumping into the topic, we're going to be talking about streamlining compliance in social care by leveraging technology. So today's episode, we're diving into the world of technology, how it's revolutionising, couldn't put my teeth in there, the way we manage compliance in the social care sector. We'll be exploring the impact of digital solutions on care providers, the benefits of platforms like digital employment passports, and the challenges we face when integrating new technologies with our existing compliance processes. So just throwing it out there, the first question. So I'm going to dive into the world of technology and compliance. It really been a game changer. I'm just curious to hear everyone's thoughts on how technology has revolutionised the way we manage compliance and what you think are some of the really standout benefits for care providers. I will throw that over to Carly first.
Yeah, I mean, so, you know, like you said, my background is social care. And 25, 26 years ago when I started, you know, although some of the checks are digital now, not all of them are, and there is no portability of records until obviously the creation of Me Passport. And, you know, why we started this whole platform was about, number one, empowering individuals to own their own data, build it, own it, and share it with care providers. Number two, to benefit care providers, because obviously there's absolutely no win in having a team of, I don't know, HR people that sit there and chase references and add up employment gaps on a calculator, or get a physical document and hold it up to the light to see if it's fraudulent or not. You know, there's only so much the human eye can do when we have technology there. And number three, was most importantly to sort of, you know, make sure that we can provide really good services to those we serve. Because, you know, I always say to people, I can write you a beautiful policy. I can write you something really beautiful in an office. I can, you know, do all of these things, but I don't really matter. The people that matter are the people on the ground that deliver the care. And if we don't have enough of those, it doesn't matter how good our policies are or our ethos or what we're about as a company and our visions and all the rest of it. No one's going to see that because we don't have enough staff. So for me, the impact obviously with digital compliance, and it's not just like, you know, having a compliance system where you have somebody walk in and you have to start everything and you know, can put it onto some sort of snazzy compliance system. This is about somebody coming into you with a passport, empowered by their data to share, and which they own, which they can share with you. And for a provider, that means that you can onboard somebody from 16 weeks and have accessibility to their sort of compliance data in 1 second. So you save all of that time. And also you save a ton of money. You know, we've just recently done a calculation of the cost savings for having somebody who is empowered by their own data to come and join your organisation, and providers will save up to 97% of their costs. Now, you know, there's a lot of news at the moment, isn't there, you know, with the NI increase and the increase to minimum wage, etc. So it's, you know, sometimes in life you just have to make it make sense. Do you know what I mean? So I think that, you know, for us, there's an all-round benefit. Providers, care workers, support workers, whoever it is that works in the sector, and most importantly as well, the people that we serve.
No, amazing. I think it's always important to remember what it's about is the people we serve, the people we support. So yeah, always important. I'm going to throw that one over to Mark just to get the provider's view on that one.
Yeah, a bit like I was just listening to Carly and making some notes, and I think a bit like Carly, I've been in the care sector for a number of years, and I was just writing down some of the things when I look at technology now and how it helps compared to kind of when I very first joined at that kind of entry level, but also as a kind of a new manager. And I think the biggest comparison now is having that data real time and actually being able to access it remotely, not having to be in an office with the paper. Actually, I could be in the other end of the country, I could be abroad and actually have that at my fingertips and be able to utilize what it's telling me to make decisions. And like Carly said, to better the workforce and the people we support. I think that improves the compliance. It makes it more proactive as opposed to being risk reactive. And I think one thing I use data for a lot in my kind of day-to-day role now is the stakeholder management and the amount that I can pull out of our compliance and send to stakeholders, to commissioners, if the CQC are on the end of the phone or at the end of the email, actually how quickly you can pull that and send it. And I think it's just being able to utilize all those things to make better decisions than we ever could have done this time, probably even 5-10 years ago.
Awesome. Just want to bring Jack in. And just say as well, it's quite nice to see two tech founders who have actually got a footprint in the sector. So not people who have come from outside, was it's like a good idea, but people who have been on the ground floor and then sort of develop solutions, because that's got to be the best, hasn't it, when people know what the pain is. So yeah, just wanted to throw over to Jack.
Yeah, so there's some fascinating points being raised here. I mean, Carly and Mark, myself, have all got background of being care providers and having our finger on the pulse when it comes to what's required and how much of a pain point this can be. Having the digital tech there 100% speeds up recruitment processes. If you've got staff members soon to be staff members, should we say, who really need the job, they want to move quick, it's normally sometimes when they're in them situations, they will apply to multiple companies and it's who can get them over the line first, and having that data there empowers that person to be able to move. I mean, care providers historically sometimes look at these integrations as a hindrance because it means someone's easier if they want to leave, but actually that comes down to a whole separate issue about recruitment and retention and empowering the person to stay, realistically, than making it difficult for someone to leave us. I think when we look at where we were, say, 10, 15 years ago, when it comes to sort of tech and doing checks to where we are now, the tech has been a major increase across the board when it comes to like productivity, just general ease and cost reductions. I mean, even things like one of our customers was saying with architecture, when it pulls some of the data across for like drivers and that information, being able to sit there and speak to your insurer on the phone for your vehicles, for your fleet, and say, this is exactly how many people I've got, this is how many people have got points, and breaking that data down within seconds helps with a long-term cost reduction, but also reduced ongoing admin. And looking at, I mean, completely different to what Carly's side does, but looking at features like the architecture staff transfer, where people who have used architecture before can move from one company to another and share all of that digital record, once again is a saving grace for a lot of the employers because it's less admin time, which allows them to focus more on service delivery, and looking at further areas where they can improve their service delivery as well, instead of getting bogged down in archaic processes. And I believe digital solutions such as Carly's and will allow people to move quicker when it comes to recruitment, instead of, I believe what the average, I might be wrong on this, is about 14 weeks. is that
16?
It's gone
16.
About 16
weeks.
So you think if you're that person in that position looking for a job, 4 months is a long time to essentially wait to try and get the go ahead, and it's a long time to be held in limbo for a company who's got to react with a growing customer base, and for a person who's trying to find the job as well.
Yeah, it's like I say, just 16 weeks. It's just crazy, isn't it? It's absolutely crazy.
That's a shock.
Who can afford to wait? Do you know what I mean? That's the thing, isn't it? Like, if I left my job tomorrow, I don't need a job in 4 months. I need a job ASAP. Do you know what I mean? And that's we often have conversations about retention and capacity and all of those things. But, how do you retain somebody within a sector where it can take up to 16 weeks to move from one provider to another? You're going to lose them because by nature, basically, you're going to go to the quickest sort of person. If you can get into Asda's quicker than you can get into a care provider, and they're going to pay you. And the thing is, with Asda's and places like that, they're competitive to us, aren't they? Because they pay much higher, their work's in one place, all of that sort of stuff. So we lose passionate people from the care sector because we're reliant on these old archaic processes. So I just think, sometimes you just got to work smarter, as I was saying to you just before we started, my world was never tech. I was just broken down by a problem, basically, which was we really want to deliver really good care. But in order to be able to do that, we need the people to be able to service the people that we support. And they was just stuck in a hamster wheel for far too long. And it's like, if I can travel the world on a passport that's nearly 10 years old, that unfortunately looks nothing like me anymore, why can I not utilize my own data to get to get access to employment? Because the reality as well, for even local communities, there's an economic impact. If I'm unemployed, there's an impact that's bigger than, for a service user. If they don't get their call times at the right time, then their health is compromised. If we don't have enough staff, we lean on the staff that we have within our services. That has a well-being impact, so this one tool for me was, how do we solve like a multitude of problems just by being efficient, basically, pulling everything we need into one place to empower our workforce. And just to pick up on your point that you sort of made earlier, Jack, I have had people say to me, well, I love this, but will it make people be able to leave me quicker? In some areas, the turnover, like Yorkshire, for an example, is 69%. They're leaving you anyway. That's it. You're all fishing from the same little pond. They're leaving you anyway. 54% of all of our social work recruitment comes from within the sector. So we have this massive movement anyway. And I think that the reality is, I always say to John, who's the co-founder of Me Passport, and I work with John at Lodge Group Care. I probably could have got a lot of more money. Yeah, that's not just me being egotistical or anything like that. I probably could have got, I always tell him I'm worth a lot more. Yeah, but the reality is, he's a great guy to work with, right? He's supportive. We share the same values, vision, all of that sort of stuff. It's a magnificent company. People stay in a culture. They don't stay often, you don't often meet people who say, well, I'm going to work there for an extra 10p, but they're going to treat me like trash. They're going to stay with the people that they feel like they're in a family with. Do you know what I mean? So I think that actually, if we get out of this scarcity of care and support workers, because yes, we have these passports, but the other benefit is that you can see the capacity in the market that you can't now. You can recruit people quicker that you can't now. So it's all of those benefits, but maybe it will make us be better employers. Do you know what I mean? Maybe it's about time that our workforce had some empowerment and control and things like that of their own data and their own work choices. And maybe it'll force us, those who are not good employers, to be better employers, because, at the end of the day, they deserve it.
You're right. That's the question, isn't it? So will it make them leave easier? Well, that shouldn't be the question. The question that you're asking is, it's probably the wrong thing to be thinking when you're looking at that line. And I wholeheartedly agree with everything that you've just said there. It is about culture. And I mean, when we look at what drives a business is only as good as its workforce, and its workforce is what binds that business and helps it grow. And sometimes myself and Lee, we've been on a co-founder journey together, and it does kind of feel like the classic cliche when you watch it in the movies, the hardships you go through. But the bonds you sort of build going through them cycles, as when the other team members join and it starts to grow, it's phenomenal. And it breeds that sense of, let's get this success done no matter what, because sometimes it's like the end goal is greater than the immediate reward. And I take on board exactly what you're saying there.
Yeah, no. I mean, even in this journey, like Me Passport, we've got people that have worked with us pro bono. That's the reality. You know, we've had times when in the beginning we couldn't afford to pay salaries. Do you know what I mean? But they liked us as people. They believed in the vision, and said, listen, I've got time. That's the value I can give you. I want to throw something at this and get behind this because I believe in it. You know, so it just goes to show you that money isn't always everything, is it? Do you know what I mean? It's actually, you know, I mean, I've got to send them a nice Christmas gift than that, but
Yeah.
you know, I've been offered a lot of stuff, you know, just saying, listen, we like you, we like you know, the organization, we love the vision and how sort of passionate yous are about making a difference. Let's get behind it, and for nothing, you know. And I'm almost embarrassed to say it at times, but that's the reality. But grateful because when, like you say, you know, you go on these technical journeys, wow, I don't know, it's very testing. I've got PTSD from it, I'm telling you. At the end, I don't know how. I'll have to, I'll be in therapy.
But this is what I love social care, because there's so many people that want to drive change, and projects like these bring people together and they bring out the best in people to drive that forward. And for everyone, it's more, we want to see the change rather than the immediate reward, because we know it'll benefit thousands of people in the future. And it's definitely, well, I think we've lent on a lot of people this year, haven't we, Lee? On our journey. But no, I love the ethos of social care and trying to drive the change, and I think that's one of the things that keeps everything going and spurs innovation, if I'm honest with you.
Awesome. So yeah, let's just talk about digital employment passport. There seems to be the new buzzword in the industry. Platforms like Meet Passport really making waves. I'd just like to get everyone's perspective how these solutions are shaking things up and making life easier for both care workers and care providers. How do you see them contributing to a more streamlined and transparent system? Who wants to go? We'll go with Mark for this one. I'll let Mark start.
Yeah, I think for me, I mean, Carly's already touched on it, the biggest one, and I can't remember the actual percentage, but it was definitely in the 90s, that 90% reduction in terms of onboarding somebody into your organization. Actually, how you can then meet the needs of the people you're supporting. I mean, my own company, Reablement, we need as many workers that we can get, the same as in home care. Actually, you're reliant on those workers to be able to grow and expand your business and meet the needs of the local population. I think, Jack, you spoke about it earlier, actually empowers people that actually, if they're working for an organisation that might not be treating them right, and we've spoken about culture today, actually empowers them just to be able to leave and go and find another organisation that meets their values. And actually, at the end of the day, that might not even be that they're being mistreated. It might just be that the values don't align with that organisation. And like Carly said earlier, actually, you don't want to be waiting 4 months if your values don't align to a company. You want to be out there doing what you do best, which is delivering great care and, you know, shaping the whatever within your organisation. I think it does build transparency and trust, and I'm sure Carly can talk more about the reference side of things. But I think we seem to be in social care in this revolving concept of we don't give references, we just give employment dates and what they were employed for. So actually you've got workers that, you know, we know aren't the greatest, whether they're unreliable, whether they've been through a disciplinary or that, you know, performance managed or whatever it is, but we don't put that on a reference because of fear of XYZ. Whereas actually with the digital passport, you can put that person can carry it with them, but also they've got the chance to explain what that was about. It's not one-sided if you've got a company that's writing a vicious reference because they don't want somebody to leave. And I think I spoke about it earlier in terms of the compliance element, I think is just humongous. And I think one of the number one pitfalls from the CQC during the single assessment framework is actually the recruitment and the onboarding and the gaps in employment. Whereas actually this digital Me Passport actually removes that risk. So actually people are more compliant with legislation. And I'm sure Carly will be able to tell you which regulation it relates to more than I can, I'm afraid to say. And I think overall, it's just the reduction in admin time. I put on my registered manager's hat when I had to do all the recruitment. Actually, the number of phone calls to companies chasing references, the emails back and forth, it was just endless amount of hours chasing and chasing and chasing. And I'd love to have had a system where I could have just interviewed somebody. You've got all of their digital skills, their passport, the recruitment documents, just to onboard them nice and seamlessly and have them join the team. But also for your own team, saying, oh, just to let you know, we've employed Lee and he's going to join the team soon. 4 months later, Lee walks through the door. Actually, how nice would it be to be like, we've just employed Lee. 2 weeks down the line, Lee walks in, or 4 weeks, we've got to give notice or whatever. But that turnaround time would just be so much better. But yeah, I feel like I'm waffling, sorry.
There you go. Carly?
Yeah, so just tapping on to sort of what Mark said about the references. We wanted to, so I'll give you a little personal story first of all, why this was important to us. About 10 years ago, we had a carer that joined our organisation, and she was a specialist in dementia. And she was sensational in terms of, she brought all of her training, she was allocated a round of people with dementia. We had massively great feedback about her. All of her CQC Regulation 19 compliance was done, everything. Around 6 months into her employment, I had a call from a next of kin saying, oh, it's really weird, my mum's getting catalogue parcels. Do you know anything about it? And I'm like, well, no, we don't know anything about that. Then a couple of days later, I had another call from somebody else telling me that their mum's got they've found a bank account that she's got, and they never knew nothing about it, all of this sort of stuff. Anyway, long story short, this lady was a dementia specialist because she was going into people that had dementia and basically getting out catalogue, opening catalogue accounts in their name, opening bank accounts in their name, whatever she could do within their name, she was doing. And from our point of view as an organisation, there was nothing we could have done differently in terms of CQC Regulation 19. Everything was met. We had a reference, blah, blah. But there wasn't like our references now, we get dates from and to, and nobody wants to make an actual sort of, statement around any problems. We had a follow-up phone call, all of this sort of stuff. And I'm very transparent. So once you know me, I can't keep anything. I just tell people, yeah, because, I think sharing's caring and all the rest of it. So I went to this sort of local provider forum and I was like, right, I had this lady, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, long story short, we was the 9th provider across Havering that had this carer. The other 8, it had happened in all of their services, and none of them had shared them details. And when I sort of unpicked why, nobody felt safe to say, because what she would do is flee basically during the investigation or, whatever else it was. So because of that life experience, what we did when we sort of went out and set about building Me Passport was we want to provide more than just dates. So we can do dates, we can do digital stamps within the passport, start and end dates, role, where they work, what their duties are, everything like that. But we've also got a conduct element. So if I work for a company and then I also work for Jack, and then when I'm working for Jack, I start opening catalogue accounts and bank accounts and all the rest of it. Jack can make a record to let the company that I'm also employed at aware, so that we have that sort of contingency in place to say, listen, we really want people to be out there promoting really good practice, want to look at appraisals that are glowing, all the rest of it. But we also wanted a system where we could capture bad characters, because although we want to make it easier for people to get in employment and to stay within the sector, we also want to eliminate bad characters because they have no value to us. So that's a bit of work we've done around sort of our conduct, sharing of information, and we've got a really, really good board that's sort of overlooking the legalities of that, the GDPR, everything like that, because it's not just as simple as me going, listen, this person's doing this, and we're really proud of that. And I think it's absolutely shocking, if I'm honest, that currently right now, as regulated care providers, there is no system in place where we share this data. Do you know what I mean? How is that we watch all the time or listen all the time about safeguarding individuals and how important it is, and we go on safeguarding training and safeguarding forums, but from one provider to the next, there's no mechanism to share, safeguarding information to say, hi guys, listen, if you employ this, or you're employing this lady, but she's actually found guilty of this within our organisation, and what we need to do is eliminate those bad characters to have the ability to just say, oh, I've got a gap year here, I was travelling. So they don't ever have to mention you, that I've worked for you. They just take you off their sort of work history. Do you know what I mean? So we're really passionate about that. So we're really passionate about getting people into the, access to employment opportunities, keeping them within the sector, all the non-duplication, everything like that. But we're also really passionate about, as a provider, if we're, I see a lot about Providers Unite and, and all that sort of stuff. Great. Let's be Providers Unite, and let's have a mechanism where we can share the essential data between each other.
Yeah, so who becomes the arbiter of that information, though? That's the question, isn't it? And I understand what you're saying around GDPR and data protection, because obviously it's a great concept. I think it's amazing because we should be open and transparent. And a lot of from my experience, a lot of providers have failed to disclose stuff merely because they're worried of backlash that will come back to them. And obviously, you're allowed to provide a honest and accurate reference. You're not allowed to provide a super negative. But obviously, if that is a negative but it's factual, then they can disclose it. And I feel some of this comes back to how the providers are actually informed about employment law in the first hand, because when things meet a threshold, as we all know, under safeguarding, they can be reported, then LADO can make a decision and certain elements with barring lists and stuff. But you're right, if someone jumps and leaves the investigation, sometimes we don't have enough to meet a criminal threshold and we don't have enough to meet the shall we say, the investigation threshold, and it goes dry. And I think that's a fantastic idea. And I'd love to hear more about how that all works in the future, because I think it's great that there's that option there to be able to say, do you know what, this person might not, or, they did leave during an investigation process and we was unable to continue that, because that might raise alarm bells in itself for employers to make more sound decisions in the future when it comes to employment.
Well, and also it may deter the behaviour at all. If you know that the employer has the ability to put that within your passport, and that's going to remain on your passport for however long it legally needs to be, then that may deter that behaviour. But right now we don't have, we just, you get references back that are dates only. What does that tell you? That just tells you employment history. That doesn't tell you this person is of a good character, they was on time, they went over and above, they, nothing like that. It's all just about employment history. We can get that from the HMRC. If we're only able to accept employment dates from and to, why are we getting references? Because that's not a reference, that's employment history. Do you know what I mean? So yeah. And I think over the course of creating or building, should I say, Me Passport, it's been fundamental to me to it's been I don't know, I can literally close my eyes and tell you CQC Regulation 19, word from word, including commas and full stops, yeah? But and the emphasis within that regulation does stipulate conduct. It doesn't even really, there's nothing heavy on references. It's of good character and conduct history. So if people are not willing to and I've done it, I've been part of the problem. I've done dates only. I've done all this stuff because we've been scared too. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So, but it's just what can we legally do? What can we responsibly do? What can we safely do? And what can we do as a sector together to make sure that, from this fishbowl we're all sort of recruiting from, that we're making safe, well-informed recruitment decisions that protect not only me, you, the people that we look after, the carers that will be associated with these individuals, that whole round circle. And I think it's just around, losing the fear and stepping out of the parapet to say, look, this is what we can legally do. These are the steps you can do. This is the disclaimer to say if you put a bad record on and it's not factual, like in terms of, a manager's dislike somebody, then obviously there's got to be a comeback because the person's got to be protected. And like Mark said earlier, to give the ability to someone to say, well, no, this is what happened. So that's what's logged against me, but this is what happened, and I've done these many trainings. But at least you can see growth in an individual or something. Do you know what I mean? Rather than, well, I just won't put that job down. Let's move on. I won't, or I'll skip boroughs. Do you know what I mean? So like the lady that we had the experience with, I had the police in, they wasn't interested. You know, and I tried to put her on to the barred list. Well, that's just an absolute fruitless, you know, journey. And in the end, I had to say to the police, like, I'm going to go Panorama. I'm literally going to go Panorama. If nothing happens to this lady, I want her cautioned. I want her put in the police car. I want anything to happen to her, because the reality is she's caused massive distress to those in a terrible situation. You know, but yeah, it just comes down to record keeping, basically. Don't get me on a rant. I'll take up the rest of the whole podcast.
See, it's like a duty of care, isn't it? It's also like a duty to protect, and a duty of care for a care provider shouldn't only extend to that point while the person's there. A duty of care should be to prevent ongoing potential risk and harm as well, right?
Yes.
And you could always brush it under that umbrella, couldn't you? You know, and I think it's a great idea. I think, you know, that people have the right to know. And you look at laws like Clare's Law, for instance, to protect people from potential domestic abusers, as an example, you know, and they've got that history. They might not have been convicted, but it shows what's been logged against them. Something similar like that. Not saying Clare's Law, you know, and I know, but where there is a history of abuse, people should have the right to know if that's been alleged in a similar capacity. And that's my opinion.
Well, if it's your mum or dad, and then somebody's not shared that information, the whole conversation's different, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? If somebody comes into your mum and dad or your loved one, and they're already in a situation where, you know, nobody really wants to end up having care. That's the reality. Yeah, nobody really, everyone wants to just maintain their independence. And, you know, I want to stay as functioning as I am now to when I'm 95. But the reality is I'm going to probably have to lean on somebody. By the time I'm 95, it'll probably be a Tesla robot. But anyway, that's another story. But, you know, if it's your mum and dad and there is a care sector with a duty of care to protect and support others, I would want to know that sector is sharing information around bad characters, whether it impacts their service right now or not, because there's still people that we're looking after.
100%. So yeah, adapting new technology. We all know it's never a walk in the park. I'm sure everyone here has been adopted some form of technology in the care settings that hasn't been easy. So when we're trying to implement new compliance management systems, what are some of the common roadblocks that we've encountered along the way, either as a provider or as a tech provider? And more importantly, what tips and tricks have you found to be the secret sauce in getting over these hurdles? Start with Jack.
Well, as you know, Lee, it's never an easy task trying to implement new tech, because every company works completely different and has some level of expectation of what they need to gain from the tech, or, you know, a different perception of value of what time versus money. You know, everyone's got a different argument, and unlike AI, we don't always deal with logic when it comes to trying to get tech and picked up. We also deal with those that are resistant to tech because they may be leaving the sector through retirement in a year or two and don't want to oversee a major transformational change, or they've got no interest in continuing and are looking to sell up. So, you know, there's so many different variables, and I think a lot of it comes down to each individual provider and what that tech can bring to them to enhance their delivery of their service in some capacity. Looking at things like digital passports, to me, is a bit of a no-brainer, because, you know, it's going to allow us to employ people quicker. We're going to be able to meet that demand. We know delays from recruitment also lead to delays in discharge at the opposite end as well. And to the economy, I believe the average hospital bed per night costs £500. Take away the emotional and well-being factor as well to the individual. So anything that can get someone out of a hospital, maybe into a care-related setting in a quicker time, should be of a paramount importance. But equally, looking at the skill sets internally, the workforce that's already there, that they have the capacity to take on another system, can they allocate resources? But then I'm a tough lover, Lee. You know my opinion on this one, and I'm like, if you want the change, you need to make the time. You know, it's one of them ones. You're gonna go round in a rut if you don't adapt, because you're gonna be caught in this. We need to change. Why haven't we changed yet? We don't have time to change cycle, and unfortunately, they're going to have to break the mold. But I think cost nowadays, people understand things cost money. Obviously, social care, we know people have budgets, but realistically, sometimes, although you have the initial outlay of a technical solution, it can actually reduce ongoing cost and time. And everything's not always about money, it's about well-being and welfare as well. You look at staff members, some of the reasons they leave is because there's no variation in their role. You know, if all you're doing, as Carly said earlier, is like checking documents, holding them up to the light all day, just putting them in a system, many people aren't going to do that for years on years, you know, when there's systems out there that they know can replace that role. So realistically, it's how we can work with the workforce we've got, get them upskilled, get them solutions in to drive the business forward, to make it more beneficial for the service user, the staff member, but also use that gained time, if you will, to then enhance the service in other ways. But the tech has got to fit the company, you know, and I think sometimes we get a lot of what we call sheep factor. So someone will buy in a software because their friends bought it in once, and then when they bring it in, they realize that software is not for them because they operate differently, you know. And I feel that there needs to just be a lot more education of the pros and cons when it comes to tech solutions, but a lot more transparency from organizations like us. You know, we might not be the right fit for you, so we don't, for instance, say to care homes, we meet your requirements, because we know we don't, you know, despite getting them in the pipeline. And I feel there's a lot of integrity there as well, making sure that there's compatibility from both sides. So compatibility from the provider, but the requirement and need from the care provider, if that makes sense. I've waffled.
Awesome. We love a bit of waffle. We love a little bit of waffle. Who wants to go next on that one?
I don't mind, whoever. Do you want me
Go on, Carly.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, I suppose I'm going to come with Me Passport and say that, you know, one of the most common sort of conversations we've had is this technology is going to take my job, you know, because if we're talking to onboarding staff, all of a sudden you can, you know, automate lots of the tasks, and it's all digitally verified and it's pulled in, even the initial onboarding from Me Passport, because like there's two ways. One is organically people can join, and the second is they can be invited by their organization, and apart from sending an invite code out to somebody, that's as deep as they go, so they don't have to do all of the 23-page application forms, gathering the, you know, original documentation, photocopying it, stamping it, dating it, signing it, you know, all of that sort of stuff, sending out references, everything like that. So for an example, you know, our organisation in Romford, Lodge Group Care, we went from having 3 people onboarding to somebody doing interviews for half a day, and being able to redeploy those resources into our services to make them better, basically. So what I always say to people is, change is inevitable. You know, we live in a digital world, whether we like it or not, it's coming at us. If we don't bring it, somebody else will. That's just the way. We're in this digital revolution, aren't we? So it's coming no matter what. So I think the question actually is, okay, well, if I don't do this, where can my value be? Where can I best serve this organisation, etc.? So I think that's been the most sort of challenging for us, because you know, I didn't think about that, to be honest. It was always just a mission to empower the workforce, make it easier for care providers, and provide really good services for those we serve. And I didn't factor into all of that thought process until sort of we went out there and people were saying, well, this is my job. You know, what am I going to do? You know, can you leave this off for 2 years because I'm gonna retire? You know, I've had that conversation with somebody in a local authority saying to me, you know, because we went at it for PAs. PAs are not a regulated workforce, but they'd provide Jack care, the same as I would provide Jack care in a regulated service. So I was like, well, PA should have a passport, because, you know, we just saw this fake carer story, and, you know, the reality is that should never happen. And when I spoke to the local authority, which I won't mention, you know, 2 of the women there was like, oh, can you just leave it off for 2 years, because this is our whole full-time job. There is absolutely no value in sitting there chasing references. None at all. There is no value in sitting there with a calculator calculating employment gaps. None. Do you know what I mean? But there is value in looking at your service and thinking, where can my time best be served? And actually as well, I think that people would stay around longer, because you get bored. You've got to get bored doing that, surely. Do you know what I mean? So that's my very long-winded answer to say what our challenges are.
Mark?
Yeah, no, I think just listening to Kylie there, I think there will be organisations that want to implement tech and think, oh, I've got a workforce that I've worked with for 5, 10, or even just a year, and actually, what do I do with those people? And I think you have to ask the question, what is right for the people you support, not what's right for your staff team. And actually, just using the scenario there and Me Passport, actually, we've spoken about how, I just made some notes, we've spoken about how it benefits organisations, how compliance is better. So actually, if you think about it logically, your compliance is going to be better. So when you're inspected, you're more likely to remain compliant. So actually, long term, actually, you're going to probably save more jobs than if your state's going on a paper-based system where there could be errors just because we're all human and things are missed. And actually, you could end up risking all of your team's jobs if you get it wrong and the CQC, you know, throw down the hammer at you, so to speak. I think some of the things that I wrote down that I think are issues are integration. I know you just touched on it, Jack. I think sometimes it's from a provider point of view, a lot of us are digitally not savvy, as we've spoken about, and actually we don't really know what integrates and doesn't integrate until we've bought a system and it's too late, and then we realise and we half use a system, or we think actually I won't use that bit, or I'll try and tweak that, or I'll put something else in to make this bit work, and before you know it, you've got kind of a maze of different technologies all feeding into one another. I think we've still got this whole thing around data security that is a massive issue within social care. I think we're all waiting for the regulator to give us some kind of guidance, and that guidance isn't coming anytime soon until government give it, and government aren't giving it anytime soon until, you know, whoever's going to give it to them. And I think that kind of just is going round and round in the wash, and I don't think providers will move forward until there is something concrete that they know that they're then compliant with. I think something like Me Passport is around the standardization and how do we push for that standardization within social care. And actually, it comes back to the regulator again. Actually, I was listening a minute ago around, you know, Carly talking about Regulation 19 saying you should be of a good character. Well, actually, how do the CQC assess that at the moment if all we're giving is dates and job titles? Actually, they're not even doing their own job. So if they said, actually, we want everybody to make sure that you have got a full reference, 2 of them, and a personal reference, otherwise you won't meet well-led, you won't meet caring, you would basically ultimately wouldn't meet any of them if you're not employing people safely. We'd all soon change our references to make sure that we're compliant. So actually, it's just about how we standardise, and a lot of it sits with the regulator, and I say the CQC for England, but actually it's no different than in Ireland and Scotland and Wales and their regulators. Actually, there should be more ownership on them to drive that change for the better. I think in terms of what we can do, I think my biggest lesson when I've rolled out system is communication. I think honesty, transparency. Actually, yeah, we might implement tech and it might take your job, but actually we can support you to work in another part of the business, or we can support you to find a job, you know, and a lot of them are admin roles, you know, in another organization, in another sector. We don't want to lose you. We can give you X, Y, Z, but ultimately, if this is what you really want to do, we're moving with the times. So are 99% of other companies, but we will support you to find a role in the interim. I think training, one thing that quite often gets missed is training staff on how to use systems and that onboarding. I think you end up with a lot of providers that have got systems and staff that don't know how to use them fully. And I think involving all staff, and I think we've said that on this podcast before, actually, you can't have just your CEO and your senior leadership team making those decisions. Actually, those operational staff need to be at the table too, because they're the ones that are going to be using it day in, day out. They're the ones you need buy-in to make it happen, because without them, you know, you could put any system in place, but if they're not going to use it effectively or efficiently, actually the data you're getting back out the other end, because probably the whole reason you've put it in place isn't going to work anyway. Sorry, I'm waffling now as well.
That's all right.
We're all
Great
waffling.
stuff.
Anything else to add on that one?
I just wanted to add that CQC, they are a pain because they don't endorse products, but the reality is if you have a system that will benefit the sector, I mean, we've presented to CQC and they've gone, wow, if an organisation has Me Passport, it would actually make us not have to spend time looking at the recruitment, because it's almost like a seal, because the information is not human inputted, it's coming in, validated at source, all of that sort of stuff, just aggregated in one place. And they said, and they have, we've spoken to them and they said the biggest thing in inspection that people fail on is safe recruitment, basically, because it is subjective. You are reading regulations and it is subjective to how you read them, but they don't endorse products. So you're like, well, in one hand, you're saying this is magnificent and this is what's needed nationally. Well, you have a big voice. So, interrogate it, pull it apart, do what you want with it. And then once you're satisfied, then endorse it, because it will make it easier. Because the thing is, like we were saying earlier, I believe that all of the answers within the sector lie within the sector. When you work within a sector and you are pained with the problems of it every single day, you can speak to carers. They've got magnificent ideas, that will make such groundbreaking sort of impacts if they was rolled out. Lots of us here, they've got great ideas. You know what I mean? All of that sort of stuff. And it's like, there's got to be like, absorb the innovation and support it. Have a mechanism of which you can support innovation, and you can test it, you can try it, you can try and break it, you can do it whatever you like, but then endorse it, because it's those sort of things, these ideas from everybody out there that works within the sector, that's going to improve the sector. Because otherwise we're all going to sit in a room for the next 10 years moaning. How many meetings do we all have a week? And it's the same old stuff. There's certain subjects. I've been talking about hospital discharge, no jokes, for 15 years. 15 years, about how it could be done better, whatever it is, just all different things. I'm sure we could all say, like the hospitals, how they could use a standardized template for discharge. Mark would know more about this than me, but but just like, not instead of ward from ward, different templates of paperwork, all of this sort of stuff. We've been talking about that for as sort of a part of a group for about 15 years, and it's like, when do we get past a problem to get a solution, and for it to be like, cuddled, if you like, by the sector? Do you know what I mean? Rather than, we're battling with tech, aren't we? Because it's hard enough to build it. It's dreadful. I'm going to say dreadful, yeah, right? But it's hard enough to build tech, and then you've got to roll it out. And then the reality is, if you had the confidence, or not even the confidence, but the voice of the regulators, of all of these sort of people behind you, because you've gone through some tests, it's going to make all of our job a lot easier. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, that's my little rant.
I'm gonna just throw back over to Jack, because I noticed you said a few of his trigger words, namely tech being hard to create and hospital discharge. So yeah, just wonder if you had anything to add to that one.
No, I'm just my main point is going to go back to the regulator on this one. Sorry, like you, need to get my teeth in. So we look at safer recruitment, and there's a heavy emphasis on when we recruit people in, but we don't look at a safer exit approach as well, and a way of maybe reporting and how we document individuals who may have left. So CQC might let's look at your starters and your leavers, but they're, as part of the safer recruitment process, they could easily modify some of these bits and say, as policy, you also need to account for that person's reason for termination and document that down and share that. And I know we're not in an industry like law where we have to give a reference, and this equally could be changed where the regulator says we must provide a reference, at that person leaving or a reason for leaving. And it does cause a lot of frustration. I think solutions like Me Passport, ME Passport should be Me Passport. Yeah. So solutions like Me Passport should be highly advocated across the sector. And where there's one element of the regulators going, we want innovation, they've also got to have another hand that says this is how we support the innovation that we're encouraging people to adopt. And I know that there's organisations like the Assured Suppliers List for digital care records, but maybe if if the regulators had their own endorsement framework that they would then allow you to enter to, and then they can advocate that as part of a solution that they believe to benefit, may be a good idea as well. But that's a conversation for another day. And if any of the regulators ever do want to jump on here, please feel free.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Awesome. Mark, anything to add?
No, I think it's been a really good conversation, and I think anybody that hasn't seen Me Passport in action, I should definitely get in contact with Carly and check out the website, because I do generally believe that we see a lot of tech enter social care, sometimes not for the right reason. I think sometimes we see tech cowboys thinking they can make a quick buck out of social care, but I do generally believe that Me Passport is going to be one of those things that actually revolutionises our sector, but also will benefit healthcare as much as social care. So I definitely think check it out and get on the waiting list for when it comes to a region near you.
Awesome. Carly, where can we find out more about Me Passport?
So you can email us at info@mepassport.co.uk, or check out our website, mepassport.co.uk, and there's a little register your interest button, and we'll be in touch. So thanks so much. It's been really lovely talking to you all.
Thank you.
Amazing to have you. Thank you everyone for the really sort of great insights. Like I said before, don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a review, follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Snapchat, all the rest of them. So but I will see you all next time.
See you later.
See ya.
See you later.
Bye.